Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second talk on this series of talks that we are having this year on what we've learned with project management, the European Spallation Source, and in-kind contributions to an ERIC. And we will start again with our triangle, because repetition does bring us to learning. So what is in the triangle? Time, cost, quality also is in the middle, scope. And what is the rainbow? Stakeholders, very good. So please memorize it, because I will do this in the beginning of every single talk. In some moment, people will dream of this triangle, hopefully not have nightmares, or they actually might start listening to Pink Floyd, one or the other. Good. So just reviewing a little bit what we did last time, we learned the definitions about project, program, portfolio, and portfolio management. We learned about the triple constraint, which we just saw now, the 6 control variables, stakeholders, types of organization, functional matrix, and project-oriented organizations. We looked into the project management methodologies, the project management body of knowledge. I will talk also about this today, and project management frameworks. During the discussion parts, there were many topics that we discussed that I actually invited some people to also talk about these topics today. Fabiola is here today, and she will talk during this first part also about projects and so on. And Filipa will join us during the discussion part. And Christian Franz will also give some input about agile and waterfall. Great. And the other thing that I would also like to bring up during the discussion point is that when we were discussing about the definitions of project, program, and portfolio, we were talking about the ESS. And I always focus a lot on project because, well, it's me. So I love projects. I will focus on projects. But Ulrike actually mentioned that if we looked into the entire lifetime of the ESS, the Director General position exists throughout the entire lifetime of the ESS, so design, construction, operation, and decommissioning. So thank you, Ulrike, for bringing that up. I would like to discuss this a little bit more again, because this kind of opened up a little bit more horizon, and I really want to dig into that. So for today, your mission overview, should you choose to accept it, we will first talk about the new project management body of knowledge book. And then the first part, we will talk about project initiation, ITTOs, identifying stakeholders, and practical examples. I will give practical examples throughout the talk. And hopefully we will have time to then follow up with the planning, where we will check the requirements, scope, and scope structure. And in the end, I have some homework for you and an overview of what we will see in the next talks. So, the new project management body of knowledge, PMBOK. I told you last time that for preparation for these lectures, I didn't buy the new books. I based myself on the books that I had, which was actually the 5th edition, which is quite old. This tells you something about my age. But I learned afterwards that the new book has a lot of the points that I mentioned last time are included in this new book, and many of the parts that also I wanted to say, okay, I would do this differently, they also changed. So I decided to buy the new edition of the PMBOK, which is the 8th edition at the moment, and the table, that big table that I showed you last time, there are some modifications. And first, before we start with project initiation, I would like to talk a little bit about that. Good. So the table that I showed you last time looks like this, where we have several knowledge areas, several processes. And the changes in the new book, actually they changed this part to governance. The costs is now called finance. HR is now called resources. They took out quality part and they included quality assurance into governance. I still didn't look into the entire book, but I hope procurement, they took out procurement, and I hope they included into finance. And the one thing that I was going to mention is that whenever we are writing documents, we always put stakeholders and communication together. And now in this new book, they also took out the communication part and included this into stakeholders. So this table is looking like this right now. Before it was 49 boxes that we had, and now we have 40 boxes. And I have to say, I'm really, I will be a bit arrogant right now, but I'm so happy that these changes are there, because those are all changes that I was going to mention to you that this should be made. And what they also included in the new PMBOK is the standards for project management and also the principles that I talked about, about the principles of Prince 2. They are also now included on this new PMBOK. Okay, we will start today with initiating. We will go into initiating project or phase and identifying stakeholders. Hopefully we will have time to also look into a part of planning, which is about requirements, scope, and scope structure. All good? Great. So, what is project initiation? Does anybody know or can tell me anything that comes to your head?
Defining scope.
Defining scope. Yes, but
And time.
just high level. And time, also high level.
Define a goal.
Defining goals, yes. What else?
Having an idea of what to do.
Having an idea of what to do. Exactly, this is good. That's perfect. So the initiate project or phase process officially authorizes the start of a project and grants the project manager the authority to allocate organizational resources to project activities by creating a project charter or similar document. If you have this definition, can you now initiate a project? You have everything you want to initiate a project right now with this definition. Question mark? No, okay. We need to know a little bit more, right? So what we have in the PMBOK are these ITTOs, which is inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. If I will look into the initiating part, the input are business documents, agreements, enterprise environmental factors, organizational processes, assets, and etc. In summary, any document that you have already available, if any, you should use as an input to write the document that you want to have in the end. And what you always want to know are the boundary conditions. And this is this enterprise environmental factors and organizational processes. And then you will have some tools and techniques. It's a big list here, and there's so many things that sound obvious, but they are not so obvious. We will go into a few of them. Expert judgment, data gathering, interpersonal and team skills, meetings, responsibility assignment matrix, project canvas, etc. And I also added here the SWOT analysis. And in the end, what you want to have are outputs. You want to have, in the end of this process, you want to have a project charter and a assumption log. Now, there is one thing that I will repeat over and over and over again, and this is expert judgment. Sorry, I got a little bit confused because I'm so zoomed in there, I didn't notice that. Okay. Stephanie can zoom in a bit out, you know, it's to focus on me right now. Thank you. Expert judgment is something that I will repeat over and over and over again. Actually, my kids, they love to watch this YouTube guy. He's called Dr. Mike. And he keeps repeating on his videos, chest compressions, chest compressions, chest compressions. This is what I will do here. I will repeat expert judgment, expert judgment, expert judgment. Let's look a little bit into the importance of expert judgment. When you get some input from an expert, first of all, you are not reinventing the wheel. You're starting from something. And very importantly, you are also building on what others already have discovered. So please, whenever you start a project, ask people who know about it. Good. Now I want to give you an example already about expert judgment. I'll talk very, very briefly about a project here from the Forschungszentrum. It's called the High Brilliance Neutron Source, or short HBS. I showed you this slide last time where we have different ways of neutron production. You have nuclear fission, you have spallation, you have proton capture. And the HBS actually focus on producing neutrons through proton capture. I will not go into the technical details of this project, but it's basically a high current accelerator with variable proton pulses, multiple compact target stations, and efficient neutron production. So, about the background or the history of the HBS. In 2017, the HBS department was founded here in the Forschungszentrum with a small team of highly competent people who achieved a lot in very little time. Between 2018 and 2021, they were working on the conceptual design report. Between 2020 and 2023, they were working on the technical design report. They also conducted here on the grounds of the Forschungszentrum a feasibility studies between 21 and 24. And after a review of the project in 2023, they were advised to follow let's say, initial part of this project, which is now called HBS1. And HBS1 last year was just entered the shortlist for national projects in Germany. So congratulations to the HBS team. My focus is only on the TDR. So the TDR has 4 volumes, and one of the volumes is on infrastructure and sustainability. And in this volume, I wrote a chapter called Organization and Management. In this Organization and Management chapter, there is a very simple organigram, which looks simple actually. I will not go into the details of this, but this would be an organigram for the construction of the entire HBS. As input, I got the construction organigram of ESS and the second target station at SNS, which is in the US. I got also the operation organigrams of ILL and PSI. Those are other facilities, other neutron facilities here in Europe. ILL is in Grenoble and PSI in Switzerland. Because you need to know, right, you are doing a construction project, but in the end, you will finish the construction and you will move into operation. So you need to have an idea on how your organigram during operation would look like. And very important, I did interviews. I got expert judgment from 2 director generals of these big facilities and 2 project directors. And this is why I keep saying, get expert judgment. And in the end, I came up with an organigram that it looks very simple. In the TDR, we have a descriptions of what goes under each box. But this is different from the construction organigram of ESS and the second target station at SNS because of this input that I got from these experts. So I'll keep repeating this over and over and over again. Good. Now if we go back to our ITTOs, I usually start from the end. So what do I want to have in the end? And what I want to have in the end is a project charter and an assumption log. How do we do the project charter and the assumption log? And this is, I will choose some tools and techniques that will help me to develop these documents. In this case, let me first start with a project charter. So what is a project charter? Does anybody know what it is? No? Okay, good. It's good if people don't know what it is, because then it means that you're learning. So a project charter is a document issued by the project initiator or sponsor that formally authorizes the existence of a project and provides the project manager with authority to apply organizational resources to project activities. If I tell you this, do you know how to do a project charter? No. Good. That's okay, because we will look into the tools and techniques to do that. Basically, a project charter, you will have to answer the questions why, who, what, where, when, how. And what I added there also, so these further questions were actually in the book, but what I added also is like what if and how much. Which tools and techniques we will look into now to do this project charter? I have selected 2 tools. It's the project canvas and the SWOT analysis. And I will repeat, after you do this, which you will do together with your team, you do brainstorming and so on, so you will for sure use other techniques there. You will also get expert judgment. Thank you. What is a project canvas? No? That's good. So, a project canvas is a visual tool used to outline and plan the key elements of a project. It provides a structured framework that helps project manager and teams capture, organize, and communicate essential project information in a clear and concise manner. It typically includes various sections, and we will see these various sections soon. The reason why I chose Project Canvas to show to you are 2 main reasons. First of all, I am a visual person, so I like to teach what I know and what I can, and basically, as I told you the last time, you will learn a lot about me during these talks. So I am a visual person, so I really like Project Canvas. And the other reason is that when I was working with startups and spin-offs, Project Canvas was the tool that was helping us the most to organize our ideas. A project canvas can have several points and could look something like this, where you have the purpose, business case, objectives, stakeholders, scope, assumptions, constraints, the milestone deliverables, team, resources, risks, project phases, timeline, budget, approval requirements, and lessons learned. You can add other topics based on answering the questions that you want to answer, but basically I just took this project canvas as an example. During the last talk, we used actually it was not during the last talk, it was during the discussions last time, for us to explain in-kind contributions to a facility. We used an example about planning a wedding party. So I will use the same example here. Let's see how a project canvas looks for a wedding. And of course, I asked AI to give me a wedding photo, and this is what I received. And as I told you, you will learn a lot about me during these talks. This was a bit too traditional for me. So I asked AI to give me a figure that is a bit less traditional. And this is what AI gave me, so I find it very interesting. It's still a very normal relationship between a female and a male, but anyway, doesn't matter who is getting married, we will plan a wedding. How we would fill up this project canvas. The purpose. The purpose is to deliver a memorable wedding. The business case, if I am organizing the wedding for you, right? The business case is that I have experience with project management. And the objective is to plan and execute a wedding event for X amount of guests, by date, and so on, so on. So you can see that the objective is a bit more technical. It's already telling you the scope, and it's already something that you can measure your progress against. The stakeholders are couples, families, the vendors, and so on. The scope is venue selection, catering, decoration, entertainment, etc., etc. We can have some assumptions and constraints. So the budget is, you assume that the budget is approved, you assume the key stakeholders are available, and you have the constraint, which is like a fixed wedding date, fixed budget, venue capacity, etc., etc. I can also put there some milestones. For example, the wedding concept defined, the venue is booked, all vendors are contracted, the guest lists, etc., etc. The team is, me as the project manager, and then the couple, throuple, whatever you're into, whoever is getting married. I'm open for everything. And whoever is also paying, etc., and the vendors. Resources are the budget, planning tools, vendor contracts, time. Risks are cancellations, bad weather, depending on if you want to do your wedding on top of a hill or something. I can also put some project phases there, initiation, planning, execution. I can put a timeline. And here it's important that I start backwards, right? So the wedding will be date X. So I come back and say 12 months before that, I will do X, Y, Z. Then we'll have a budget. I'll divide the budget in venue, catering, etc., approval requirements. So there will be the budget approval, vendor contract sign, and lessons learned. I will just, in the end, do a document with lessons learned for the next person who will do this. I did my canvas, and then what do I do? Expert judgment. I will ask people who already got married in that place, and so on and so on. Okay? Good. Now, the other tool and technique that I will use is a SWOT analysis. And you remember when I did this joke of stakeholder and something to hold a stake? Those are real-life examples. This is a real-life example. I had to have this discussion that SWOT is not SWOT. So, what is SWOT? What does SWOT stand for? If you're online and you want to talk, also just unmute and talk, okay?
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats.
Very good. Who is talking?
Mina.
Wow. Yes,
Okay.
perfect. So, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Again, let's do a SWOT analysis if Tania would be the planner for a wedding. Which are my strengths? Strong planning organization. Strong planning and organization. Budget control expertise, risk management and contingencies, structured communication, vendor negotiation skills, clear scope and time control. I'm great, right? Yeah. Perfect. But there are weaknesses also, right? Can be too rigid or process heavy. There is this emotional thing because wedding is emotional versus a very structured process. Possible overconfidence? No, right? I mean, come on. Limited flexibility if overplanned, and family resistance to this project management approach to plan a wedding. There are some opportunities, the use of PM tools, negotiations with vendors, data-driven decisions, etc. And there are also some threats, which are weather disruptions, vendor cancellations, price increases, some other unexpected issues. So here we have some positive and some negative aspects, right? Strengths and opportunities are positive, weaknesses and threats are negative. But we also have internal and external. So you can see very clearly here that strengths and weaknesses are more about me, and opportunities and threats are more about external conditions. Okay, so now you have these two. Okay, I did the SWOT analysis, then what do I do? Expert judgment. I will ask people what they think about it, if I'm right or wrong. And now I get the project canvas, I have the SWOT analysis, I have the expert judgment, I probably pass this through the team and so on, and then I could probably now try to write a project charter. Again, let's see the project charter. We will see what are the why, who, what, where, when, how, what if, how much. In summary, you will have a project purpose, measurable project objectives and related success criteria, high-level requirements, high-level project descriptions. You will have overall project risk, summary of milestone schedule, pre-approved financial resources, key stakeholder lists, project approval requirements, project exit criteria. I don't know if you remember the last time that I was saying, okay, I always put a milestone decision to proceed. This is extremely important. Assigned project manager and name of and authority of the sponsor and other persons authorizing the project charter. If you have now this information, can you now write a project charter? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, maybe. Let's say that you can try at least, right? Okay, good. And the other output that we would like to have, not only the project charter, we also want to have the assumption log. The assumption log looks simple and it looks not that important, but it is actually extremely important. I'll let you know why. So it should have a description, impact, owner, category, status, and data that you logged, that assumption. It makes hidden thinking visible, reduces risks, improves decision-making, supports communication, enables accountability, helps with change management. But the main point about an assumption log is that if you have this, and throughout your project, you will give updates to several stakeholders. And in these updates can be, for example, a dashboard. Okay, so if in this dashboard, you always have your assumption log. So for example, one assumption is that you have access to the building at that time. Another assumption is the budget is available. Another assumption is the procurement department is available, that you will do the procurements when you can. When you put this assumption there, this assumption log there, and the high-level stakeholders see themselves as owners, you keep reminding them that you can only deliver the project, that scope, in that time, with that budget, if they can fulfill this part. So please always have an assumption log, if possible. Not if possible, no, just have it. And before we finish this part of the project charter and the assumption log, I would like to remind you to always make a project SMART. Does anybody know what SMART stands for? Okay, so specific. Make your goals specific, narrow for more effective planning. Measurable. Define what evidence will prove you're making progress and reevaluate when necessary. So for example, here you can also have KPIs and so on, and we will talk about this in the future. Attainable. Make sure you can reasonably accomplish your goal within a certain time frame. Relevant. Your goals should align with your values and long-term objectives. And time-based. Set a realistic end date for task prioritization and tracking. So when I was writing this smart, I saw that many places they write when it's talking about time-based, they say put an optimistic timeline to make the people hurry up to finish the project. I'm really against that. I think this only stresses out the team. So I much prefer to put a realistic timeline. I'll just make a break here. I think we have a question online.
Who's the owner of an assumption?
Who is the owner of an assumption? Let me just quickly go back there. So, for example, if you are assuming, we are talking about here a lot about instruments and T-Rex and ESS and so on. So let's say that we are talking about the instrument T-Rex, right? And we say, okay, we assume that the contract is signed by then. The owner of this assumption are the people who will actually sign the contract, right? So they are the ones who will be negotiating the contract and they will sign. So you will put the name of this person there. If you would have, okay, then procurement needs to be available. The procurement department needs to be available because otherwise, if we have delays with procurement, we can have months delay on the project. So then the owner would be someone a bit more high level. So the owner is the person who is responsible to make sure that this assumption takes place when you're supposed to have that. Is that okay? Good. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions online? No. Okay, good. Let's then continue. So, now that we finished this initiate project or phase, we will go to the next box, which is identify stakeholders. Just as a parenthesis here, so in the PMBOK, they usually go through the knowledge areas. So they first talk everything about governance, then scope, and so on, so on. This is not the way that I think in the phases, so I start with the initiating. Identify stakeholders. Let's remember a little bit first who is a stakeholder. A stakeholder is a person, group, or organization who affects or is affected by the project. I will, again, not show the picture of me holding a stake, but now you know that a stakeholder is not something to hold a stake. In the PMBOK, identify stakeholder is a process of identifying project stakeholders regularly and analyzing and documenting relevant information regarding their interest, involvement, interdependencies, influence, and potential impact on the project. We also have ITTOs for identifying stakeholders. Here in the book, they put a lot of input. I will talk about this soon. Some tools and techniques, and here are the outputs. Do you know, since we are just right now initiating the project, do you know why in the inputs, in the PMBOK, they put a lot more documents? Or can you think why this is there? Because from everything that we talked right now, we still don't have those documents, right? The project management plan and so on, so on. So technically, with the project charter, the assumption log, you cannot have already the project management plan and so on. They put this there because it's this initiating part is initiating a project or phase. So if you're starting a next phase, then an input would be also these other documents that you would have already there. I will not go over everything. Our focus here today will be on Stakeholder Register. This is the document that you want to have in the end of identifying stakeholders phase. And we will also talk about stakeholder mapping. So, about stakeholder mapping. This is a post-it that is on the wall of my boss. This was done approximately 10 years ago when I was trying to tell him about stakeholder mapping. And then he got this post-it and he said, okay, this is probably everything I need about project management. It's an axis with 2 crosses. Right now, this post-it actually faded away because it has been standing there like for 10 years. But technically, what I was trying to tell him is about stakeholder mapping. And then a friend of mine, she came by one day, and we were discussing, in his office, we were discussing about project management and so on. And he said, look, I have this post-it about project management. She looked at the post-it, and she said, is that a power interest grid? And see, she could see from that post-it that it was a power interest grid. So a power interest grid is basically the name, right? So you have power, you have interest of people. You have people, stakeholders who have low interest and high power, high interest, high power, low interest, low power, high interest, low power. Yeah. Now, which stakeholders there do you have to monitor, manage closely, keep informed, or keep satisfied? Let's start with the extremes. Let's say the extreme, a person who has high interest and high power.
Manage closely.
Manage closely. A person who has low interest, low power.
Just keep informed. Keep insights and say keep satisfied. Yeah.
Just monitor.
Monitor. High interest, low power. Keep informed. Low interest, high power. Keep satisfied. Okay, good. Okay, so knowing this, knowing that you have to somehow categorize your stakeholders, we can also take a look into a stakeholder risk register. Oh my gosh. I think if I say register, risk comes immediately. No, stakeholder register. A very simple stakeholder register, you have the name, title, organization, email, phone, role in the project, time of intervention, and notes. This is extremely simple. You have an Excel file with that. I just want to mention here that this is a document that is confidential, right? Because you will have your private notes in this document. You will have private information about these stakeholders. This is, I think, the only document in a project that I would keep very confidential. My stakeholder register is actually much larger than this. Yeah.
What's about category?
I'm getting there.
In terms of your slide before?
Yeah, I'm getting there. So this is the most simple example of a stakeholder. You just have people there. Our stakeholder register, the one that we developed together, has much more, right? And we also put there the current involvement, the desirable involvement. We will talk about this soon. The potential impact on the program. Well, I put program here because we are managing a program and not a project. Type of engagement, current communication, and the person who is responsible to communicate with this person. So this is huge. Our stakeholder, I was going to say stakeholder risk register again. It's huge because I really like to just do pivot tables, and then I have all the information that I want in the same place. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about involvement. This is extremely important. You can have stakeholders that are unaware, so who doesn't know about the project. You can have resistant stakeholders who are aware of the project but they don't support it. You can have neutral, who are aware but they are neither supportive nor resistant. You can have supporting, and you can have leading. So when you put on your table what they are right now and what you want them to be, and you can then program one column to give you an input, okay, you have to act here, right? This really brings out, okay, we need action with this group of people. And in particular, You want to have those people who are resistant, who are aware of the project, but they don't approve. You want to be, you need to be aware that you need to act there. And this can then also be registered in this stakeholder register. Good. So we are now in the end of project initiation. We started with inputs, so business documents, agreements, EEFs, OPAs. We used some tools and techniques. We used the project canvas, the SWOT analysis, the power interest grid. We for sure used what? Expert judgment. And the outcomes are a document, which is the project charter, the assumption log, and the stakeholder register. Yes?
I ask myself all the time, you say that for beginning of the project you have to make this project charter. But isn't it just important that this project charter is in some way approved by the sponsors of the project?
Yes.
So just by issuing this document, nothing is done?
Yes. So this is why it's called, the definition was the project charter gives authorization, right? So it needs to be approved, it needs to be signed. And then the people have the go-ahead, yes, start this project. But actually, I think I will add this on the, thank you. I will add this on the topics that I put that you should have on your project charter. I will add a part like approval. Yeah, this is the document for approval. If you just produce a document, you can produce many documents. If you don't have approval, you cannot go ahead. Good. So now that we are in the end of this initiating part, let's go to some examples to see if we know when a project is actually beginning. And let's take a look into our favorite example. Let's take a look at the ESS. In the last talk, you already saw this slide with the Forschungszentrum contributions to the ESS, which already gives you a bit of a timeline. You also saw this other slide with a larger timeline of the ESS itself. And today we will go a bit more into the entire history of ESS. Everything started in 1983, when Bauer actually produced a document called the German SNQ project and its research options. I found it amazing that I found this document, and it was on a typewriter. That's it's the first document throughout my life here in the Forschungszentrum. That is, I actually see it being done in a typewriter. In the 1990s, so this was a project here from the Forschungszentrum, right, this SNQ. But in the 1990s, there was a European panel on advanced neutron sources where they discussed about actually having an European project. And just another thing, so Professor Richter is also here kindly to reply any questions about the history of ESS. So if I don't know the answer, he agreed to come over to reply those questions. In 1992, there was an initiative for the ESS by the Forschungszentrum and Rutherford Laboratory. Between 1993 and 96, there was the feasibility study for the ESS. This resulted in a report. And at the same time, in the end of this feasibility study, both the US and Japan kind of got interested in this kind of spallation source and decided to also work in that direction. Between 1997 and 2000, there was the ESS R&D phase. And in the 2000, there was a Berlin Council new structure. Then they had a really the whole structure of the ESS with a council chair and all the work package managers. In 2002, there was a huge conference in Bonn where the main goal was basically ESS. And then there was some silence after some time, right? There were some political decisions to pursue other research methodologies. And only in 2006, again, the ESS entered the S3 roadmap. And there is this very nice article in Science that is called Dark Horse Neutron Source Heads Belatedly Towards Starting Line. But by then, SNS was already ready, and they had first neutrons in 2006. In 2008, J-Park in Japan also had first neutrons. And we were still just on the process of deciding where ESS was actually going to be constructed. In 2009, there was a decision to construct the ESS in Sweden. But it was only in 2011 that there was an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, signed at the Swedish Embassy in Paris. Between 2010 and 2014, there was the design update phase. In 2012, the technical design report was published. And in 2014, construction starts. So, when is the project initiating phase of the ESS?
So here there is initiative ESS project, I don't know,
1992, initiative ESS project.
That would be too easy, right?
If you're online also, you can just comment if you want. What?
What's 2009?
2009, decision on site?
Or some between.
So,
11 was already signed.
I will not give the answer. You guys have to try it.
The initiation phase is from 1993, starting of the feasibility study, until the 2011 MOU signed.
This is the project initiation phase until the MOU is signed.
That's what I would propose. So MOU signed is in principle the approval of this charter.
Let me put another question. Everything that we saw about project charter, about assumption log, about stakeholder register, is for a project being done inside a company, right? Here, you have a very complex mega science project that was not done in a company. So, and this is what I want to point out, that all these methodologies, they are great. They are really, really great. I love these project management methodologies. There are some things that you just cannot adapt them to. So, technically, you could, since for the project charter, you need the approval, right? It's the approval, go ahead. Technically, signing a memorandum of understanding is something that could be considered as, go ahead, construct this. Okay?
So everything before was...
A lot of work by highly motivated people who really wanted this facility to be constructed. I think in this Bonn, this conference in Bonn, how many participants did you have? Do you remember?
I don't know, but there were very many. I mean, this was held in the old Bundestag in Bonn. I think there were maybe something in the order of 800 to 1,000 people were there. You know, scientists from all over Europe. And actually, there's one point which is missing, namely, you need a backup. And the backup is a user community in this case, in order to have such a mega science project. And in 1992, we started, when the ESS initiative started, we thought about organizing the European neutron users. And therefore, we founded the European Neutron Scattering Association that was founded in 1994. And therefore, there could be some pressure from the users that they need this. Just for fun, such a big facility is never built. So you need a very large interest group who's supporting it. And that were the European users who then more and again said that this would be very necessary, in particular after the Americans and the Japanese were starting their project and we had nothing.
Based on our plan.
Yes.
So what did Professor Richter just emphasize? What do you need?
I'm interested. That's expert. Expert.
It was not expert judgment. What do you need? Let's go back to the triple constraint plus the rainbow. Who is the rainbow?
Stakeholders.
Stakeholders.
Yes.
You need the user community. And those are the most important stakeholders of this facility.
High interested.
These are the highly interested and low power.
High interest, low power.
Well,
But many of them, hopefully many.
Many. Maybe, you know, in number, you have a bit more power, right? And in particular, if you do the ENSA association, this is extremely important. Are there any comments online? Because there are some things to bring up. Okay, so we will just continue. We will take a look into something that is a bit easier right now. We talked about the entire ESS. Let's talk right now about T-Rex. So how did everything started with T-Rex? Basically, throughout the design of ESS, you always had to think on which instruments you will have, right? And which features this instrument needs to have. So these instruments were always considered during the design. In 2002, there were a publication called the ESS project with several volumes. Do you remember how many volumes, Andreas? 4 volumes.
4 volumes.
And in volume 2, there was an article called The Science-Driven Approach Towards the ESS Configuration and Instrumentation, written by my dear boss. And in there was already listed the instruments and a comparison of the instruments, how much they would gain compared to other facilities. Between 2010 and 2014, there was the design update phase, and there was a work package called Time of Flight Spectroscopy. We already saw that in 2012, there was the technical design report of the entire ESS. And then in 2014, the Forschungszentrum submitted a proposal to construct specifically T-Rex. So this proposal was submitted to the Scientific Advisory Committee, and then they prioritized instruments for the construction of the ESS. It so happened that directly after that, contract negotiations for the construction of the instrument took a bit longer than expected. Therefore, in 2016, we signed a contract to start with the phase 1 of T-Rex, which contained the scope of work and the schedule. And in 2020, we signed the full, what we call technical annex. It's called a technical annex because we signed a big contribution agreement with the ESS, and then all the technical descriptions of the different projects would be an annex to this contract. Good. So now we can maybe try to see when is the project initiation of this project. This is a bit easier than the entire ESS, right? 2015, when the proposal was submitted. Yes?
when the annex is signed, because then the budget is fixed.
When the annex is signed and the budget is fixed. here you have different stakeholders, right? You will have ESS and the scientific advisory committee who will approve this, but they still cannot say, yes, I will pay for it, because they will not be the ones that pay for it, right? This will be done here in the Forschungszentrum, and they say, okay, yes, you can construct that for that budget. So the approval from the SAC was in 2015. The approval for the first phase that was signed between ESS and the Forschungszentrum was in 2016. So you can say that this is one part of the project, this is one phase of the project. And then there was another signature approving the project to go ahead in 2020. So you see, this is much easier, right? Although it's still very high level, very high stakeholders, it's a bit easier to say, okay, this is when there was a document, this document was signed and approved. Okay? Good. Now, just for fun, and in particular because Tigarita already mentioned this, I'd like to quickly go over the ESS stakeholders. So, who do you think are the ESS stakeholders?
Forschungszentrum is one.
Forschungszentrum, for sure.
All the ministries of all the countries who are paying for ESS.
They are. So all the ministries of all the countries. Yeah. But they are which level and which power?
High power and how interested, I don't know.
So very high power. So you need to give them there. What else do we have?
Potential users.
Users, exactly. So we have users, we have the ministry, we have the partners, all the partners, not only Forschungszentrum, but all the partners. Who else?
Suppliers.
Suppliers. Who else?
Inhabitants of Lund.
The
inhabitants of Lund.
That is true. The local communities. Because this will be constructed.
The Umweltorganisation and whoever might be against this.
So this will be constructed there in that place. And society people who are not so aware of what this kind of research facility is, they always think, okay, you're building a black hole in my backyard, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, they are very important, actually, stakeholders. Well, not so important, but you need to monitor that. What else?
Tax offices of Sweden.
Actually, yes, tax offices. That is true. So I think we already mentioned most of it here. Let's just check. So scientific users, in-kind partners, though that's also the Forschungszentrum. Suppliers, ESS internal workforce, extremely important. EU and international organizations, local communities, host countries, governance bodies, and member countries. Good. We are now done with the first part of the talk. And we will move on to project planning. We have time. Oh my gosh, that's good. I'm very happy about this. So, in the last talk, I already showed you this, which is this brief studies on the research infrastructures that I did, for fun, from the S3 roadmaps. I showed you this milestone trend analysis, and I also showed you these investment costs, right? This is interesting. Sorry. Yes, this investment costs and the evolution throughout the year. Now, if by any chance you read this book in the meantime, and my book is, I borrowed to someone, so if the person finishes and another person wants to borrow also, please feel free to ask. This is a book saying how big things get done. The surprising factors that determine the fate of every project, from home renovations to space exploration and everything in between. If you read this book, you would see that this, what I showed before, this milestone trend analysis and these issues with budget and so on, you would see that it's not only in large-scale research infrastructure. It's basically everywhere, from home renovations to space exploration. You will always have issues, or I don't want to say always, but let's say a majority of the time. And in chapter 1, what he says here is think slow, act fast. Planning is a safe harbor. Delivery is venture across the storm-tossed seas. So he emphasizes all the time on the importance of planning. You spend much less money on planning than actually doing it. And if you do it, you have to do it again and again and again. It's an issue. So plan, plan, and plan. There is also a quote from Abraham Lincoln, which is, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. This is also a quote that many people talk about when planning, when they are talking about the importance of planning. And I am very, very grateful to AI that I was able to generate, actually, a picture of a lumberjack with the face of Abraham Lincoln. I mean, doing slides nowadays is much more fun with AI. Good. So we are now moving into this part of the table, of the PMBOK table. In order for you to do this first part, so integrate and align project plans and plan sourcing strategy, you first have to have all these other documents, all the management plan for all these other knowledge areas. So first you have to have this. But in order to have this, in order for you to plan how to manage something, you first want to know what actually you will be managing. And this is my way of thinking. As I told you, I will always talk about, things from my perspective and my experience. We will focus today then only on the requirements, scope, and scope structure. Good. So we will go to ITTOs again. And I'm writing all this text here just for you to have it available. We will not read this all the time, but it will be there on the slides for you. Okay? The ITTOs for requirements are, so the input, you will input what you already have available. So hopefully you have your project chart already. If there are any agreements, any project documents that you have already, if you, by the way, if you're starting a phase, then you already have a project management plan. And what is always very important is this EEFs and OPAs. So these are your boundary conditions. Tools and techniques, you have your expert judgment, obviously, and many other tools and techniques. And in the end, you want to have your outputs, which is basically a requirements document. Again, let's go back to T-Rex. I will show you a table here. Do not get scared with this table. It's a lot of technical details that you don't have to understand. So basically, you want T-Rex to do a certain type of science. In order for this instrument to do this certain type of science, you have to have some parameters. And in order for you to have these parameters, then you will be able to know which scope the instrument will have. So basically, for T-Rex, these are my requirements, and I should write down a very large document explaining all the scientific and technical requirements for the instrument. As soon as you have this, you can then define the scope. Again, ITTOs. In the end, what you want to have is a project document with a scope statement. So in order to deliver those requirements, we will say that T-Rex has these links, has this size, has these choppers, has these guides, has this, that, and so on, so on, so on. So this will be the scope of your instrument. And then you will do a scope structure. Oh, I'm going a bit faster than expected, but it's okay. So the structure, what we will focus here is the composition for tools and techniques. And in the end, what you want to have is a very, very precise WBS, which is the work breakdown structure. Now, if we would look into, this is the focus. If we would look into T-Rex, right? We saw this drawing of T-Rex. This drawing here is indicating down here which building this instrument is. So this instrument is going across many buildings because it's a long instrument, right? So you have the monolith bunker, DO3 is one building, EO2 is another building, and EO1 is another building. And then let's say very basic components of this instrument, let's say guides, beamline shielding, choppers, etc., etc., etc. And you also have what we talked last time on these stages, right? So you have the preliminary design, critical design, procurement, manufacture, installation, and commissioning. Now, you are doing, let's say, a to-do list for this instrument. Where would you start?
With a list of for every single part to produce a to-do list.
With a list of, let's say that you have only these parts here. So we will call them product, right? So what you are saying that we should have a product breakdown structure. It's a PBS. So let's say that you have this list, and then you will not put each screw there, or do you want to put, so every single part, what do you mean exactly?
So I would separate things, separate to-do lists for the guides, for the beamline shielding, for the choppers, and all these things.
Okay. So first you start then with the product, and then you will have a to-do list for each of those components, right?
And I think some additional components would be, for example, licensing of the entire facility. Which
That's
is overall, but more or less separate of the products.
Okay, so in the end you will have to license this. You will have to make sure that it's safe to operate, and it will be a part of the facility. Yes, very good. But let's forget like the end part. Let's just focus right now on what we have here right now. You want to produce the T-Rex, you want to design, you want to procure parts, you want to manufacture, you want to do the installation and the commissioning. You will start with the product, and then what would be in your to-do list for each of those components?
Everything what you need to do before you get there, the pre-activities.
The pre-activities, which are?
Do we have suppliers for that? Do we have the designer for that? Do we have the people who understand about that? Do we have the contacts?
I would hope that this pre-phase is already in your project charter, but if you don't do it, do that first. That's for sure. Nope. Okay, this is good. So one way of doing this, if you would start with the component, you can say guides. The guides will go, let's say guides here, will go through a preliminary design, critical design, procurement, manufacturing, installation. So this would still be high level, but then you would have to do, your to-do list for each of those components would include those phases. And then in those phases, you can decompose even more. So it depends on the level of, I forgot. The level that you want to get to, right? So the guides are level 1, preliminary design would be level 2, and then under preliminary design, you would put everything that you have to do for preliminary design. Okay, good. You could also start the other way around. You could say preliminary design, and then you say guides being, this is a bit of a personal decision. I start, like Yuri said, start with the components, and under the components I would put this, and that. But then I want to plan installation. How would I decompose my installation plan? Would I still do from components to phases, or would I use another way of decomposing this work breakdown structure?
Well, most probably there are some interdependencies and that you have to take into account.
Sorry? Okay. Okay. Yes, for sure we will work a lot with interdependencies throughout this year. But if I would do a purely installation plan, I could also think of decomposing this work into location, into the different buildings. Because the different buildings will have different cranes, will have different access, and different everything, pretty much. So you see that there are several ways of doing it, and it doesn't have really a right or wrong. It has what is best for you and your team. What is extremely important is that each and every single project that you are managing has the same decomposition. Okay?
So same decomposition depending on the person of the project manager.
Depending on the team. So for example, if I would do something else, if I would do the wedding planning, I would not do from products. I would do work, a to-do list, like first I have to do this, then I have to do that, and so on, so on, so on. And then it will depend on the people that I'm working with, my team of wedding planners, or in this case, the team of scientists, engineers, etc., that you agree with that. So, for example, we tried to make sure that all the instruments that we are managing here has the same decomposition.
But everyone needs to agree. Yeah. Jenny wrote, a real all-inclusive project plan has to cover everything from the grant opening to the waste disposal. You wouldn't build a nuclear power plant without a plan for the leftovers, right?
Yes, Daddy, everything will take longer and it will cost more. Don't worry.
This was just a joke.
I know. That's why I'm laughing. Okay, good. So in the next talk, we will go a bit more into details of decomposing this, putting this into a project management planner, a schedule, and we will see the interdependencies, and we will see much more. So, I have now a homework mission for you. You could, if you would like, develop a scope structure for a project. You can develop a project canvas. You can bring this and we can look into it together during the discussion part of the talk. But there is one thing that I would really, really like to ask you to do, which is to keep a daily or weekly diary of the tasks that you want to do, be it like write a report, be it clean your kitchen, I don't care, and put the time that you think it will take. And then afterwards, put the time that it actually took. This is extremely important. The more we know ourselves, the more we know how we estimate how long the tasks will take, the better we will work on the schedule. And the schedule is what we will also work on our next talk about planning. So just about the next steps then, we will meet again in April 23. We will have planning part 2. And before finishing, I actually wanted to invite Fabiola to discuss a little bit about projects. So as I mentioned in the beginning, Fabiola is here as a guest. She agreed to talk a little bit about projects, because what we discussed last time...
Here next to
you. Just So, do you get us both?
No.
Here?
Yes.
Yes. Gonna cover.
So, first of all, actually, happy birthday.
Thank
it's
you.
Her birthday today.
For Tia. I'm telling everybody.
So what we discussed last time is that if you do a project, for example, building a house, right? And you will build the same house over and over and over again in several different places. Should this be seen as a project or as business as usual?
As a project.
As a project.
For sure.
Can you say a little bit about yourself before, like your background and so on?
So hello, everyone. My name is Fabiola Almeida. I'm also from Brazil. I have nothing to do with Forschungszentrum. It's just my second time here. I actually work in a company here in Jülich, SAG PMBOK. We do basically packing. So I'm civil engineer, nothing to do with packing or industrial business. So I basically do projects there. I'm an original technician in civil construction, also civil engineer. I have an MBA in building and modeling system. And well, basically it's not the same because every house, even if the rooms, the space are the same, the foundation, the environmental and everything around is not the same. So we have different stakeholders, different minds, different neighbors, different cities or government or visit or whatever which goes around. We have different positions of the waste, water, the power. Everything is different, even if the house itself is the same. I have a perfect example because, as I say, we do packings, we have buildings, we build plants to produce packings for the world, let's say, because we are a global company. I built exactly the same plant. I did already in Brazil a few years ago, 15 years ago. Then we were in Mexico, then we were in China, then we were also, I basically was in Brazil, in Mexico, and in India, and I can clearly tell you the environmental are completely different. The stakeholders are different. The mining are completely different. So something is build something in Brazil, which is my local language, my local regulamentations, everything what I know as I started in the college. In a completely different scenario was built the same plant, the same drawing in India, for example. It was a completely different culture, completely different environmental rulers and everything are 100% different. So even if we build the same thing, the manager there are not the same. So they are changing a little bit here, a little bit there. The machines are a little bit new technology, new needs for power, for consumption, for utilities and everything. So building something, even if it's the same, or make different weddings, or make different parties, or making different projects, or IT programs, or everything's always different. And we are always dealing with the mining of the people, the different concepts, what the people bring to this project, it's the different stakeholders for sure. And yeah, that is always a challenge because we always need to choose between build faster and good, right? The triangle, define the scope, keep with the scope. The people are always change their minds also, right? I guess everybody already faced this kind of thing. So we start with this project is like that. And then the people just visit, some stakeholders just visit the place and say, but it would be good if we have this wall a little bit in that direction. It's just 10 centimeters. We'll not change that much, right? Or just change this line from here to there. So we have a lot of efforts after that. We have scopes, we have contracts, we have money involved because change something what is already done or change a drawing, which after will not be in the drawing for the as-built or something, will always change. So I can say, yeah, planning is something what we try to do as best as I can. But usually when we are in the execution phase, we have different impacts, different stakeholders in different situations, but you usually change these things. And nobody wants to wait, right? We are always in the run, And we always need to start everything yesterday because we are too late. So we need to decide our cost, our money, our time, our quality, right? It's kind of impossible to have everything right now in those days or in projects in general. But sometimes happens, huh? Unfortunately, I didn't have this lucky yet. But it's really interesting, and I'm loving this presentation, Tania.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if somebody has any question.
One day you mentioned that just because of the distance between the project that you were doing and the supplier, I think for concrete or something.
Just, yeah. Yeah, in Brazil we have another company. I was working actually a construction company, and we were working for this huge company in the middle of Pernambuco. Pernambuco is a small, not so small, but small state in the north of Brazil, and we are really in the interior part of the country. And then we had the luck to have the concrete company just next to us. I would say 5 kilometers distance. But we were just on the other side of the road, in a highway. And then the trucks need to leave here to get to my construction site. Was actually 5 kilometers before. But the trucks need to drive 25 kilometers ahead and come back 30 kilometers for us. So for the concrete the trucks come back to the company was easy. But to get to me, even so, was only 5 kilometers. We were in the highway with a lot of cars, a lot of trucks, a lot of risk of accidents. And we were in a kind of critical moment in Brazil where everybody were doing strikes. So the truck drivers were doing a strike and they just blocked the road. So the concrete could not pass. We were just 5 kilometers away. And nobody will allow the truck drivers they were in a strike, right? But anyways, nobody would allow somebody to drive backwards 5 kilometers to my construction. So we could not make construction, and we are just doing the foundations of a big, basically the foundation was 20% of our building, I would say, heavy foundations for machinery. And then we have to wait for 20 days, more or less, to the situation come back to the normal. And the worst, when they started, nobody were really informed about. It was kind of a surprise. So the concrete trucks were on the way to us. And concrete get dry inside of a truck. It's a huge problem. So the company had to send some motorcycle drivers with some chemical additives to avoid the concrete to get dry inside of the trucks, because we were like people putting fire. But this is something that you can really not control. You manage the risk. You ask the concrete like 1 hour in advance. You manage the risk putting some additives to keep the concrete resistance. But how can you control a strike uninformed in the middle of the road? Really, really complicated. We manage, right? But costed money. Costed time, but we manage. And then you need to say, okay, what you're going to do? We're going to deal with the concrete directly in our construction. We could, but that's really expensive, right? So what do we decide? Stakeholders meeting. Guys, we need to wait for this get solved. And we had 20 days delay in a construction of 7 months. That was a huge impact. Well, we need to manage. It happens. Shit happens all the time, right? We cannot avoid. No.
Questions?
Questions? Oh.
Online questions.
Oh. All right.
If not, then I would say we are finished for this part of the talk.
Thank you, Tania.
We will stay here.
I would say.
For the people who are here, we actually have a birthday cake.
Yay. Thank you.
For the others, see you again at 11.